Welcome to Love Your Coaching. I'm Charlie, and today we're going to talk about a 4-part standard coaching structure. In the last video, we talked about the 3-part TEA structure. It's a really good first structure to use. And as coaches improve their confidence and their understanding, we can introduce a 4th part, effectively taking the E, the exploring part, and dividing it into 2. So let's look at how it works, and let's look at some of the detail of this structure. Firstly, when would we use the TEDA structure as opposed to the TEA structure? It's for longer sessions. It works really well for sessions when you're coaching for all the way up to an hour, but certainly for 30, 40, 50-minute sessions. We find that sessions of this length, just having the main body doing E exploring isn't enough, doesn't give enough frame. So introducing this second stage in the middle is really important. When I say it's for coaches with some experience, I'm not talking about very experienced, but I'm talking about they've gone beyond the basics and they know and they understand a structure. So typically we teach it in training, either for advanced coaches or in our standard coach training. It's a second structure we teach maybe 4 or 6 hours after we've taught the first one. It really works well for when coachees are having a few sessions lined up, because the length of these sessions means that coaches are likely to bring issues of more substance and more interest to be able to talk about. So a longer structure and a more thorough structure is more useful. And finally, although this isn't always true, it's often that this structure will be used for weightier issues. Don't have to be negative issues, but issues with slightly more complexity, with more deep thinking needed than maybe some of those briefer coaching sessions that can be very practical, can be very much about solving a problem for something that the coachees are working on today. So overall, you can see it's got lots of usefulness, lots of different ways that it can be applied, and certainly something for coaches to get to grips with. Let's look at the structure now in some detail. We break it down and you will see that it follows the TEA structure, but with a bit of addition. Let's talk through each stage. I'll always mention the topic stage, where we want to make sure that the topic is really, really well established so that both coach and coachee know what they want to work on in the session. The outcome from the issue, yes, but definitely the outcome where they want to be at the end of this session. The exploring stage tends to now focus on getting everything out on the table, tends to focus on really understanding what's going on, why this is an important coaching topic, where the coach is currently at, what they've done about it so far, and so on. When they've done that, then we can move on to this developing stage. And the developing stage allows a coachee to start sharing what they can see, what's possible, what's changing. It's the exploring stage that leads a coachee to be able to understand how things can develop and how things can change. And if those 2 stages are done really well, then we can move nicely to a next step stage, an action stage, where the coachee can look at what they're going to do, how committed they are to doing what they're going to do, and perhaps how impactful the actions that they plan on taking will be. So you can see, not very different from the TEA stage, but this developing stage gives a slight little bit more nuance. Let's break it down even further. We're going to look at potential questions that we could ask in each of the E and D stages. Now, whenever I share a list of questions, I'm never saying work through these questions slavishly in any type of order. We might ask one question and we get 3 or 4 or 5 answers that mean we need to go in different directions. So take these as guidance rather than as a checklist to work through. The exploring stage, it's a really good opportunity for the coachee to lay it all out on the table, to see where they're at, to see why this is a topic that they want to work on, to see what's going on, perhaps start thinking about maybe what they've done before. So TED, that acronym for Tell, Explain, Describe, we might be just inviting them to share some thoughts, some ideas, some feelings. Perhaps talking about the impact. You might find that the coachee, this thing is really, really, really bothering them, or they're really excited about it, or not so much. Establishing the impact can be really helpful. Perhaps what they're noting what they're noticing when we're asking them to step back half a pace from this situation and talk about it. What are they noticing that's going on? What are they noticing that's happening to them, perhaps to other people? It's really good. We're not asking solution questions here. We're not asking what they're going to do, but we might ask in the E stage, what could be the benefit of resolving this? You can imagine that question. Someone's talking about what's difficult, what's going on, and you say, if this wasn't a problem anymore, if it was resolved, or if you'd worked out an idea, what do you think this might mean to you? And they can start seeing the potential that it's really worth pushing through. And finally, really thinking about what they've already done. Because maybe they've already done loads and loads and loads of things, and they might be halfway towards a solution. Maybe they've done nothing because they're not quite ready to do anything, or maybe it's something between the two. But it's a great question to be able to ask to find out where they're at. These are definitely not the only questions you can ask at the exploring stage. You'll think of your own. You'll have your own favorites. You'll have ones that you can go to. You can ask very simple, what we call qua questions. Keep going, tell me more, what else, and so on. But certainly the flavor of these questions is about fact finding, really about finding out what's going on. So I hope that's useful. Then pushing into the developing stage. And let's think now they've done the exploring stage, where they're at, they'll start maybe seeing things a bit more clearly, start to have picked it over a little bit. So we can start asking questions that are going to help them raise awareness, going to help them think about some next steps. Again, we're probably not going to ask next steps yet. We can save that to the action stage, but we're moving towards it. So you might ask a reflective question. You might ask where they're at, what they're learning, what they're picking up. My coach often asks this question, and it comes just at the beginning of the second half, and it's really helpful. It lets me see that I'm already understanding and learning just from having started to talk about this. Perhaps asking about change. It's quite often at this stage there's a realization that something different needs to happen, that the coachee needs to do more of X, less of Y, different Z, that they can think about some changes. They are more likely to be ready for this question now than 15 or 20 minutes ago. Perhaps asking them, seeing if they can note any possibilities, anything that they can see. We shouldn't worry about whether we can see possibilities or whether we know that there are any possibilities. That's not on us. When we ask this question, what might be possible, then the coachee has the opportunity, don't they? They have the opportunity to pick up and say what might be possible. And it's really nice also to start thinking about them in a positive way, especially if they're talking about something that's difficult, a challenge, or something negative. If we ask this positive question, what have they got? What are their strengths? What can they bring to be able to resolve this? It's often forgotten by coachees, but also I think by us coaches, we can forget this. It gives an opportunity to people to see it is within their gift to resolve the thing. And then finally, maybe as we get towards the end of this stage, we can start asking questions about their progress. Are they near towards a solution? Are they near towards being able to do something? So this developing stage should now feel quite complete. It should feel like a bit of a job of work in itself, so that the coachee is now ready to be taken into this final A stage, that final action stage. And they should have a better chance of being able to move through and being able to then take and commit to some actions. So as we come to the end of this video, a reminder of the TEDA stage. What I've done today is I've broken it down and explained, in addition to the earlier video about the TEA stage. And hopefully what you can see is that this four-part structure does bring in some more depth, does bring in some more nuance, and gives a bit more of an opportunity for helping the coachee work through maybe more complex thoughts, maybe more complex ideas, and should help us as coaches be able to have a bit more thoroughness to how we're going to approach this standard coaching session. I hope this is useful. I hope you find that your TEDA coaching sessions go well. Do ask any questions if you'd like to. Put them in the comments below. Good luck with this and happy coaching.